Hello, and welcome to the Project Good podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Hilton. Project Good is a social impact podcast interviewing experts and advocates about the pressing problems that we face globally and hearing how they suggest we move forward in the future. The Project Good podcast is brought to you by Project Good Work. The goal of this podcast is to inspire people and organizations to develop a mindset that can move others to positive action regarding the complex social issues facing people and the planet. For December, we're focusing on our Organization of the Year, the International Rescue Committee San Diego, or IRC San Diego. The IRC San Diego has been selected because it embodies the Project Good theme of community for the 2023 year. In September 2023, the number of forcibly displaced people worldwide was estimated at 114 million and growing. The figure includes refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people, and other people in need of international protection. The International Rescue Committee provides opportunities for refugees, asylum seekers, victims of human trafficking, survivors of torture, and other immigrants to thrive in America. Each year, thousands of people forced to flee violence, persecution, are welcomed by the people of the United States into the safety and freedom of America. These individuals have survived against incredible odds. The IRC collaborates closely with government bodies, civil society actors, local volunteers to support refugees, asylum seekers, and other immigrants in San Diego as they work to rebuild their lives. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Sharon Kennedy, Executive Director and Development Manager, Bennett Donnie at the International Rescue Committee in San Diego. Sharon Kennedy has been in the development space for over 20 years. Ms. Kennedy understands the complexities of getting funding to the right resources and people facing a crisis. Starting her career as a young woman by joining the Peace Corps and working in Thailand set her on the trajectory of working to change lives. As a professional, she's known to be good at managing chaos, crisis, and working for the best outcomes within a diverse workspace and community. Bennett Donnie is IRC's development manager in San Diego. Bennett has supported the San Diego office for over 3 years and manages all aspects of local resource development, including grants, fundraising, contributions in kind, and community engagement to sustain programming and resources for immigrant and refugee families IRC serves. Before starting at IRC, Bennett had a background working and researching overseas in Ecuador, Cuba, Kenya, and Japan. Let's get into the interview. The mission of the International Rescue Committee is to help people whose lives and livelihoods are shattered by conflict and disaster to survive, recover, and gain control over the future. In a world filled with increasing fires, floods, earthquakes, war, and conflict, displacement is increasing worldwide, and large populations of people are having to leave their homes, countries, and everything they know to start anew in countries they never imagined living in. After experiencing traumatic situations, many people can feel lost and need assistance with getting back on their feet. The IRC San Diego serves a growing population of people affected by these global issues, and today we are speaking with Executive Director Sharon Kennedy and Development Manager Bennett Donnie to get a unique perspective of the everyday local challenges and global refugee crisis. Welcome, Sharon and Bennett.
Hi, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much for having us. I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, I'm so excited about this, and I thought it was obviously timely in what we're seeing globally, but also each year at Project Good Work, we have a theme that we focus on, and this year we looked at community. And so looking at a crisis of refugees and displaced people was perfect because it answers that old question of who is your neighbor? And the IRC encompasses that by outreaching and stretching themselves in help, of course, to everyone that encounters these difficult situations and brings them into a community to feel like home when they are no longer in their regular home. So before I get into asking you some questions, I always like to get a personal take on the people that I'm interviewing. And so I'll ask you each the same question, and you guys can both answer it. So one of the things that I thought that would be kind of difficult in this space is how do you keep yourself going in a sometimes heartbreaking society in this type of industry?
That's a good question. Of course, this work is extremely difficult with people coming to us who have gone through inordinate challenges and setbacks in their lives and having to leave their country and start over. I think what keeps me going is seeing the resilience of our clients and our staff who are working with them to keep achieving. And people come, I think a lot of us would think it'd be unimaginable to lose everything and have to leave our country and start over. But we see people who do just that, and within a few years, they are doing amazing, and they really have set up a community for themselves in our city, whether being welcomed by their own neighbors and finding their own path through employment or self-employment, the children doing well at school. That just really inspires me and keeps me going, because I know that people are able to rebuild their lives and have I want to say rosy, but have a better outlook for their future. And it's important work, and that's what inspires me.
And what would you say, Bennett?
I would certainly echo everything that Sharon just shared. In addition to, I think what keeps me motivated and inspired in the everyday and the work that I'm doing is just being able to advocate for our clients and programs through the sphere of development and grants management. And especially so, just the volume of clients that we're able to serve each year. So this past year, we served just over 7,000 individuals just in San Diego alone. And I really think that being able to advocate for our programs and relentlessly improving those programs to be able to adapt and meet the needs of the community is something that inspires me every day to do my best work, as well as just in conversations with our staff, which also more than half of whom speak, more than one language or have experienced forced displacement of their own. That's always been something that just everyday interactions with our staff has also definitely been a source of motivation for me.
I echo and appreciate the sentiment of both of you. When I was thinking about this and when I asked this question, I was like, this has to be like, personally taxing, but you both have to have these like, I guess, naturally huge hearts to undertake, such work. So I'm really excited to have this discussion that we're going to have. I guess let's start at the beginning, because I think a lot of people, when they think about this type of topic of refugees, displaced people, they just think about probably the images they see on TV and, if they're like me, maybe National Geographic, right? And so I guess, can you clarify, I guess, when we use the word refugee, or maybe we shouldn't even be using the word refugee anymore, because the numbers are so large. What does that really mean?
Yeah, generally when we're speaking of someone who's a refugee, we're thinking of a very specific definition, which is someone who has been forced to leave their country due to persecution or violence, and is unable or unwilling to return to their country due to a well-founded fear of persecution. And that persecution is based on 5 categories: race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or a political opinion. So it's not someone who leaves their country for economic opportunity, but that person who may be able to go back to their country. So a refugee is someone who is not able to go back because they will be persecuted, maybe their ethnic group, their religious group, or they were politically active. And in that case, they get a special designation by the United Nations that they're a person of international concern, and they are due special protection.
Now, one of the things I always, I guess because I also am a woman, so I always think that I'm just going to kind of jump on this topic of women, just because I believe in, I don't know, maybe the last 3 years or so, women have been a hot topic on everything.
Yeah,
it's we're on the table, and so how would you say women and I guess I don't want to do maybe a verse, men versus women, but what are some of the, I guess, differences that women encounter when, dealing with becoming, asylum seekers, refugees, or displaced people, I guess. I'll just, for now on, I guess, refer as displaced people that are different than, I guess you would say, men face.
Yeah, thanks. This is a population that is of special concern to the IRC, not only here in San Diego, but across the nation and internationally where we work. Women, I think by nature of most of our societies, women often have responsibilities for children. And so when there's a displacement, they may be with their children and having to have also care for them and try and protect them. Women can be extra vulnerable to crime, as we all know, and often when they're on their journey, they can be exposed to things that none of us would want to be exposed to them if they're on their own. And men also obviously have responsibilities for children, but in some of the countries where we work with, there may have been war, other things, and families get separated for a variety of reasons, and women are on their own and making their way. When they come to the United States and they become a refugee to the United States and we're able to help them, we have also noticed that for a lot of our populations of women aren't maybe finding employment at the same rate as men, and they may need some extra help to become employed or to start a business. And we've developed some programs to make sure we're including women and designing programs for women to be able to be successful here. In some of the countries where our clients come from, the women may not have worked outside of the home or may have had less education. This is not the case in every situation, but in some situations. So we pay attention to that and make sure we're providing services that are accessible to women as well as men. And we also have in San Diego a Women's Resilience Center where we provide a lot of support, both for economic empowerment reasons, but also social and psychological support for women particularly.
And I'm happy to quickly add to that as well. I think that San Diego, especially locally, has been making pretty significant advances in embracing and promoting gender equity as an organizational commitment. So just recently, over the past year, we completed an 11-month gender analysis, conducting focus group discussions with some of our men and women clients to better understand the barriers that they face to even access programming and services so we can make those improvements. And some of the major themes that our women and male clients face that came about through that analysis was women having most of the home-based responsibilities, which can impact their ability to access services and obtain stability, and that there are a significant amount of our women clients also experience barriers to achieving financial independence and stability for the reasons that Sharon just articulated, and often face a dependence on their male counterparts for mobility. And so that also we discovered as well kind of indicates that, the men in these families sometimes experience a brunt of household stress when they're often trying to obtain an income to sustain their families as well as continue to send money abroad. And so are definitely some of the big challenges that are faced in addition to shifting cultural dynamics from the country that they, had called home. And then when they come to the United States, it's a very different cultural dynamics that often impact and increase the barriers that they face when they get here.
Now, speaking, I guess, of, culture and cultural impacts, and you brought up a couple different things to highlight. Of course, I would say, I know this is a general broad stroke, but I'll say in a good amount, maybe 70%, I guess, of the world, we'll say women tend to be dependent, I guess, if they are in like a family situation on, having that male provider. And so when we are looking, I guess, and I know not only culture, but of course society plays into that whole dynamic. What would you say, I guess, I don't know if you're allowed to disclose that, but where would you say most of the displaced people in the San Diego region come from?
I can answer that question. I'll give you several of the top countries where our clients come from. One is Afghanistan. We also serve, and we have a lot of services that are for people who are not refugees, who are also have other statuses in the United States. So people from Mexico, Ukraine, Iraq, and Syria. That would be the top ones this past year of people we served. And it changes all the time over the years. There's different populations that come from different countries. And obviously Afghanistan, a few years ago, there was the U.S. pulled out, and there was a big operation to assist Afghans who had assisted U.S. military and U.S. organizations in Afghanistan. And a lot of people came over from Afghanistan to the United States in just a very short time, and that became our main population.
So I guess with now, we've seen since last year and this year, obviously now we are, there's two wars going on, actually there's more, but I guess two that get the biggest, I guess the ones that get the biggest highlight. I guess that's a whole other thing to talk about, who gets highlights. But we have the war in Ukraine that I think has continued longer than people expected. And then also now we have, the crisis in Gaza. And so is it likely then, do you think, that you'll start to see people come shifting towards California from there, or not necessarily? Because I don't know, I guess I was thinking we might be just here naive in California. But I always feel like everybody goes to the East Coast or Europe or somewhere. But is that totally false? I guess, how do people get to? I like California, but how do people get lucky enough to come to California?
Yeah, it's probably good to talk about the process of someone becoming a refugee to the United States. And this is someone who comes through the refugee channel. So I already shared the definition earlier, where someone has to demonstrate that they are not able to go back to their own country, and they're based on certain persecution. And the United States actually goes and finds people who are refugees and interviews them overseas. It's done through the Department of Homeland Security to identify refugees, and accepts people and gives them refugee status to come to the United States. So this is not an instantaneous process. It can take many years. And generally, let's just talk about any war, not either of the wars that you have mentioned, but let's say there's a war in a country, and there's people who flee that situation, whether maybe it was their region, their ethnicity, their religion, or something that caused a certain group of people to leave and go to usually to a neighboring country. So now they've left their country, they're outside of their own border, and they don't feel they can go back because of one of the reasons, race, religion, nationality, etc. And then generally people may stay for some time in that situation. It could be in a refugee camp, or it could be in an urban area where they're living, but they may not have full status in that country. They may have a very limited status in that country. But essentially, I'll say this is not always in every case, but people are hoping to go back. They think, like you mentioned, the war in Ukraine has gone on longer than we thought. Sometimes when these wars start, or conflicts, internal conflicts, most wars are civil wars, so they're within a country, not a different country invading another country. People are hoping that will be able to go back home. So when they end up in a refugee camp, it's thought by everybody that it might be short term, and maybe this will last a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then we can go back. And so that's the initial plan, that people would be able to go back. But unfortunately, a lot of wars are protracted. They go on for many, many, many years, and people end up in that kind of indeterminate status for a long time, and they're not able to fully live their lives. They have their kids, they're growing up in a refugee camp, or in an urban area where they don't have all the full rights and status of that country. And at that point, or at some point, the United States government might say, I think we can look at refugees from this area. It doesn't look like they have good prospects for going back to their country. We can look and see who are the people who are deserving of extra protection in the United States. And they will interview people, confirm that they meet the definition of a refugee. They go through a series of background checks, and then they organize for them to come to the United States. So this is called third country resettlement. So they've left the country they grew up in or they were living in. They lived in a second country, and now they're coming to the United States as a third country. And that when they come here as a refugee, it's considered to be a permanent resettlement, that they will be able to, if they want to, live the rest of their lives here. They're eligible to work from the first day they arrive, and they can stay. After 5 years, they can apply to become a U.S. citizen, and they can live their lives in the United States. So that process is not quick, as you can imagine. It can be bureaucratic, and it's not everybody. It's a very small percentage of all the refugees. You mentioned over 114 million displaced people. The U.S. this year expects to admit as refugees about 125,000, which is just a drop in the bucket. But for those people, it's an amazing opportunity. But that process it's long. And so even people from Ukraine, there have been some people coming to the United States from Ukraine since the war started, but they're not coming with refugee status. They're coming with a different status because the refugee program takes much longer. It's not wieldy like that. So when we say, like, are we expecting to have people from these wars as refugees? I'm not sure. Not probably immediately, but there may be other ways that people are able to come. And obviously, you mentioned also asylum seekers. This is a different population of people that come to the United States, but they come on their own. They don't come through the government program. They present themselves at the border and they ask to be given asylum. And that's a whole other process that's separate from the refugee program.
So I one of the things, thank you for explaining the process, because I think a lot of times, and I'll just say that this is for people who are not intimately involved with this issue, and then also, just the general population, that it seems that it's presented that the process seems easier than it is.
Yeah, it's not easy. And there's so few out of all the 100+ million people, there's so few that it's really kind of rare, actually, of all displaced people to become a refugee and come to the United States.
Yes, and the reason I'm bringing up this point is, there's this. We're going to go on kind of a little bit of a different journey, but I think it's an important one to acknowledge, because there's a little bit of fear when the people hear, there's a lot of refugees coming or asylum seekers for various reasons, depending on, who you ask. But, the fact that you have mentioned just how small out of the millions and millions of people who are affected by this, and that should give a new perspective to everyone of how, I guess, to look at it in a different way. Hello, everyone. It's Anne-Marie from the Project Good podcast. We must start to do a mind shift in our individual thinking and actions to realize that we are one humanity facing some major global giants, and that we can no longer stand on the sidelines and be ignorant about all the issues facing us. Change always starts somewhere. Reach people who care about what you care about. Advertise on the Project Good podcast today by contacting us at projectgood.org/podcast. You brought something that I think is important, because obviously everybody's affected in a displacement process, but how the children then have to kind of take the lead in the family and facing, not only, I guess, childhood is challenging in itself, right? So that's, something that people, I guess, can think about is, I guess, ways when they do encounter somebody who has been in displaced, and, the children to open up and think of it a different perspective of the role that the children have had to undertake. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you are you faced this year in your organization, or something that you think that you're going to face in 2024?
I think our biggest challenge as an organization, I think we face the same challenges. One is a lot of nonprofit, really trying to continue to receive support from our community, our funders and donors, and always making a constant effort at that. Programmatically, I think some of the challenges are housing. Housing in San Diego is extremely expensive, and we try to help our families get into housing, safe, affordable housing as soon as possible. That is becoming more and more of a challenge, though we are finding success in that, but it's a challenge that I see in the coming year. Just to be honest, I think with the election, there may be some challenging rhetoric during the election process. So we're paying attention to that, which might draw more attention to refugees and immigrants in general in the United States. And Bennett, I'll see if you have anything to add on the other challenges we're facing.
Yeah, I think echoing what you just shared, the fact that being that we're, a large nonprofit in the area, the majority of our budget, for instance, 85% is restricted through grant funding. And so I think that continues to be a challenge, is to make sure that we can equitably serve all of our clients, regardless of their country of origin or immigration status. And so I think that being able to continue the flexibility of our programs to serve all clients from all nationalities and backgrounds continues to be a challenge to source those flexible funds. So I would just end with that, and kind of that there is a call to not underestimate the power of individual donations that are really key in enabling that flexibility to continue to provide equitable service delivery across the board. And I'm sure that is very similar, concern and challenge that many of the nonprofits in our area are facing.
Now, if people want to donate to the organization, of course, they can go to your website, but are there other types of donations that they can supply? I know you mentioned housing. I don't know if it can't really necessarily be a donation, but I guess, do people look for like clothing, food? Are there specific things that people can do besides also donating funds?
Yes, of course, donating funds is the most flexible way to support us, but we do also receive in-kind donations, and we have a wish list, an Amazon wish list that's on our website, where people can provide items, including food for a food pantry that we have, but also we're always in need of household items and other things. We don't generally take clothing. We don't have a storage area for clothing like some nonprofits may have, but there are a lot of items that we do need, and it's on our website, and we can send you the link as well. And then we also utilize volunteers. And so people are welcome to learn about our volunteer and internships that we have available and contribute that way. It's a really important part of us being able to provide the services that we have.
Fantastic.
And also, I'd like to add the other ways that people may be able to help. You mentioned housing. There may be people who are landlords. And so if you're a landlord and you would like to help, you can reach out to us. And then employers. Our clients need jobs, and they're excellent employees. And we have a team that works to help them get into their first job, and then also to build their career in the United States. And so we're always looking for employers who are looking for great employees.
Yes, actually, that's a great one in employment. And I have a fun question, or at least I think it's fun. I guess, what would you say is the most remarkable thing that you have learned about people when you are working with, displaced individuals?
I've thought about this a lot. I've been working at the IRC since 1996 and many years, and I've worked very closely with a lot of clients. And I think the most remarkable thing, two things. One is how cruel people can be, and what people can suffer through, and when countries fall apart, or when there's war or conflict. And I think we see a lot of that in the news about the wars now. That it's just incredible to think what people have had to go through. And it can be really disempowering and cause you to feel dejected. But then on the other piece, I'm completely amazed by the resilience of people and the power that they get to go through that process and to show up and be ready to start afresh and to learn a new language and build a life, especially for their kids and for their families. That to me is amazing, and it's remarkable. I think it's just the human spirit is remarkable, and we see it every day. Kind of like the people who've gone through the worst, and then they're able to come here and put a really hard work in to succeed here.
Yes, Bennett, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I share very similar sentiments. I really think that it's the resiliency and the creativity of our new arrivals that really stands out. One example, for instance, is just all of the many small businesses, for instance, that are supported through the Small Business Development Center. They have incredibly creative businesses in restaurants, in food, and just amazing things that they're contributing throughout the San Diego region. And that is one thing that I think stands out just in terms of their ability, for instance, to navigate the dynamic and fast-moving and oftentimes very challenging economic landscape that we find ourselves in San Diego County in particular. And so I really think that resilience and creativity stand out.
I agree. For me, you think about a hopeful future is someone starting their own business. And refugees and immigrants do that a lot. They are amazing business owners, and we have programs that help them support it. And it's a vote for themselves and a vote for the future. I mean, they're putting everything on the line to do that, and there's your proof of resilience.
Yes, definitely. It's a challenge, even if you're not a refugee, to start a business. And so for them to, push themselves even after going through so much trauma and actually a whole new system and world, to then push themselves into entrepreneurship, which is a challenge in itself, is amazing. But, I guess... perhaps once you have been through such a tough situation, which is probably the ultimate challenge of life, then it maybe opens you up to be able to take on things that nobody else could imagine doing. And so I have a question that this will be our last question before we wrap it up. I wanted to see if how the words to you, community and refugee, reflect each other.
To me, they reflect each other perfectly, because refugees become part of a community and they are welcomed by a community. I mean, it's what makes people feel that they are at home. And we don't resettle refugees into an apartment. We resettle them into a neighborhood, into a community, into a city. They shop at the store, their kids go to school, they get jobs, they become taxpayers and members of our community. And so it's part and parcel of the work. And I think when I think of IRC and think of community, we couldn't do our work without the community. The community helps, like Bennett said, we receive funding, but a lot of it is highly restricted, which is amazing and allows us to do the work we do. But the community helps us fill in all the gaps of needs, whether it's in-kind donations, whether it's a volunteering or being an intern or making a donation. That it to us is community, and that's really important part of our work. And it's really important for our refugees. Like you said, people, if they've fled their homes, they want to feel safe and secure, and they want to feel like they're a part of our society and that they belong. And that's what the community is.
Bennett, do you have anything?
Yeah, of course. I can certainly add to that. I think that, stepping in to support displaced communities everywhere is definitely something that, care and compassion is at the heart of that. And care and compassion is at the heart of community in terms of how I define it. And so I think that neighbors stepping in to help neighbors is something that we're doing every day, and we're trying to encourage and advocate for all of our, community members in San Diego to step in and really be a part of helping people become a part of, the community that we're all in creating kind of a network of, a worldwide community where we can celebrate everyone's cultural differences and unique attributes that they can, bring to the communities that they're entering. So that's where I think that there is that unique intersection between refugee resettlement and support of all displaced communities, from refugees, asylum seekers, asylees, special immigrant visa holders, dreamers, you name it. I think that welcoming them is at the very heart of having, a productive and positive and hopeful community.
I love both of your answers because it made me think of two words. It made me think of the word healing and diversity, and putting those together, and then of course, encompassing that and community of, what we should, I guess, all be striving for, that it doesn't matter, where you are or where you're from, that, we all need to, feel that we are part of something and that we are connected to something. And that the other thing that also amazed me, Sharon, is that you told me that that they don't, that you guys don't put them in apartments, you put them in a neighborhood. And so that is, that's wow, because they don't feel, apartments are, I guess, no pun, but pun, we know they're boxes, right? So instead of, putting them in a box, allowing them to have the ability to be fluid and to come together with, different people, and to interact and to walk down the street and go to the store and look out the window and feel connected is, the two words I'm thinking is healing and bringing out whatever, culture or experience they have and adding to the larger community and city. And of course, it has a ripple effect in the society. So I love both what you guys have said about how community and refugee reflect each other. Thank you both for your time today. To learn more about the IRC San Diego, go to rescue.org. Additionally, you can find information for donations, volunteer opportunities, and other ways to assist in the show notes and on the Project Good Work website blog article. If you have a passion for an unserved community, a social justice problem, or want to change minds, contact Project Good Work at projectgood.org to start your project of change today. It's that time again. The Changemaker Conference is happening May 23rd, 2024. Register now at thechangemakerconference.com. Subscribe to our mailing list at projectgood.org/subscribe to get our episodes and blog articles sent to you each month. Plus, get a 10% discount on any project you start on projectgood.org. For our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Project Good, where we're focused on what matters.